What if I told you the greatest empire in history began with a brother's blood and ended with a forgotten boy emperor? From a scrappy city-state on the banks of the Tiber, Rome rose through discipline, ambition, and ruthless conquest, ruling more land than the world had ever seen. But its story isn't just one of legions and emperors. It's a tale of backstabbing senators, slave uprisings, divine madness, and the slow unraveling of a civilization that believed it was eternal. This is the rise and fall of Rome, an empire forged in myth, broken by power, and still echoing through the world it left behind. Rome begins not with a triumph, but with a fratricide. Romulus and Remus, abandoned twin sons of a Vestal virgin and possibly the god Mars, were suckled by a she-wolf, raised by a shepherd, and destined to found a city. But in the shadow of ambition, Remus fell, struck down by Romulus himself. This myth set the tone for Roman identity. Blood before brotherhood, sacrifice before sentiment, survival at any cost. Historically, Rome likely emerged as one of many settlements in central Italy around the 8th century BCE, overshadowed by the Etruscans and Greek colonies. Early Romans were farmers, artisans, and warriors, toughened by hardship and driven by an instinct to outlast. From the beginning, they were takers, but also absorbers. They adopted the Greek pantheon and Etruscan engineering. Rome was never too proud to learn from its enemies, and that made it dangerous. The early Romans despised kings. After overthrowing Tarquin the Proud in 509 BCE, they created a system without monarchs, the Republic. Power was shared between consuls, the Senate, and the people's tribunes. It wasn't democracy, but it was something rare, a working oligarchy, grounded in law and negotiation. Still, the Republic was a constant struggle between the patricians, Rome's elite, and the plebeians, the commoners who fought in the wars and tilled the fields. After years of protests and walkouts, sometimes literally marching out of the city, the plebeians earned rights. Laws were inscribed on bronze tablets in the Forum for all to see, a gesture toward justice. Rome's military wasn't just brutal, it was methodical. Soldiers trained not to win battles, but to endure, to rebuild, and to adapt. Generals shared the spoils with their men, and Roman citizenship was extended to allies and even enemies. When Rome fought, it fought to destroy or assimilate, no middle ground. In the 3rd century BCE, Rome met its equal, Carthage. A seafaring powerhouse in North Africa, Carthage ruled the western Mediterranean. The First Punic War, which was sparked over Sicily, dragged on for 23 years. Rome, with no naval tradition, built a fleet from scratch, copying a wrecked Carthaginian ship. By the end, they'd sunk 500 Carthaginian vessels. But the Second Punic War gave Rome its most significant test. Hannibal, a military genius, crossed the Alps with elephants braving snow, starvation, and hostile tribes. At Cannae, he orchestrated one of the most incredible tactical maneuvers in history, encircling and annihilating nearly 70,000 Roman troops. The psychological shock was immense. Romans performed mass rituals, including burying people alive, to appease the gods. Yet Rome refused to surrender. They adopted Fabian tactics, avoiding direct battles, harassing supply lines, and turning patience into a weapon. Eventually, the Roman general Scipio invaded North Africa and defeated Hannibal at Zama. Rome demanded tribute. Carthage was disarmed. But it wasn't enough. 50 years later, Roman soldiers destroyed the city. Survivors were enslaved. The earth, it was said, was salted, though likely symbolic. Rome was now the master of the Mediterranean. Victory brought land, enslaved people, and treasure. But it also brought greed. Senators grew wealthy on latifundia, massive slave-run estates, while small farmers were crushed by debt. Veterans returned to find their land sold off or stolen. Urban poverty exploded. The Gracchi brothers tried to fix it. Tiberius proposed land reforms. The Senate clubbed him to death. His brother Gaius tried again a decade later. He died in a state-led purge. Their murders marked a turning point. Roman politics had turned violent. Then came generals like Marius and Sulla, who raised private armies loyal to themselves, not Rome. Civil wars became routine. The Republic cracked under the weight of its contradictions. Enter Julius Caesar. Charismatic, brilliant, and beloved by the masses, Caesar conquered Gaul, crossed the Rubicon in 49 BCE, and sparked another civil war. After defeating Pompey, he became dictator for life. But power breeds fear. On the Ides of March, 44 BCE, Caesar fell beneath 23 daggers. Among them, Brutus, his friend, his betrayer. Yet Caesar's death didn't save the Republic. It only sped up its end. Out of chaos rose Octavian, Caesar's heir. Cold, calculating, and politically gifted, he defeated Antony and Cleopatra and emerged as the sole ruler. In 27 BCE, he took the title Augustus. Rome was now an empire in all but name. Augustus transformed the state. He reformed the military, professionalized the bureaucracy, and patronized the arts. Poets like Virgil and Horace flourished. The Pax Romana, the Roman peace, began. But there was darkness too. Augustus exiled his daughter for promiscuity. He ruled through propaganda and the secret police. The Senate was a rubber stamp. Still, for most Romans, life improved. Grain flowed, roads were safe, the baths were warm, and the games were free. It seemed eternal. Not all emperors were Augustus. Caligula began well, then descended into madness. He ordered executions for amusement, declared war on the sea, and demanded his horse be made consul. Nero was worse. He murdered his mother, possibly burned Rome, and staged ghastly spectacles, including burning Christians alive. And yet, the empire endured. The 5 good emperors, Nerva, Trajan, Hadrian, Antoninus Pius, and Marcus Aurelius, ushered in a golden age. But even gold decays. Under Marcus's son, Commodus, Rome slipped into vanity and violence. He styled himself a gladiator, fought in the arena, and renamed the months after himself. The rot was setting in. By the 3rd century CE, Rome faced constant crisis, invasions, plagues, inflation, and assassinations. Between 235 and 284 CE, over 25 emperors ruled, most murdered by their troops. Provinces rebelled. The economy collapsed. In desperation, Diocletian divided the empire into 2, east and west. He ruled with iron authority, persecuting Christians and instituting harsh reforms. For a time, it worked. Then came Constantine. He reunited the empire and, in a stunning move, converted to Christianity. He founded Constantinople, a new capital in the east, wealthier, stronger, and more defensible than Rome itself. But the west was fading. The Huns, led by Attila, swept across Europe, displacing tribes and terrorizing cities. The Visigoths, desperate and hungry, begged Rome for refuge. Mistreated and starved, they rebelled. In 410 CE, led by Alaric, they sacked Rome. It sent shockwaves through the ancient world. Augustine wrote The City of God to explain how such a holy empire could fall. But it got worse. In 455 CE, the Vandals looted Rome again. The empire could no longer protect its capital. Finally, in 476 CE, a Germanic chieftain named Odoacer deposed Romulus Augustulus, the last Western emperor. He was 16. There was no last battle, just resignation, silence. A flickering candle is going out. But Rome didn't vanish. The Eastern Roman Empire, the Byzantines, lived on for 1,000 more years. Their scholars preserved Roman law, science, and philosophy. Even after Constantinople fell in 1453, the idea of Rome endured. Napoleon crowned himself emperor in a Roman ceremony. Mussolini dreamed of a new Rome. The U.S. Capitol echoes Roman architecture. Latin is etched on college seals. Christianity itself spread along Roman roads in Roman tongues. Rome became more than a place. It became a symbol of ambition, order, and warning. Rome rose because it was adaptable, inclusive, and driven by a shared identity, however flawed. It fell because it lost that identity. Corruption, inequality, complacency, and the erosion of civic virtue did what no army could. Today, we still ask, are we Rome? Maybe the better question is, what would we do differently if we truly believed we were?